My name's Alan Vailliencourt and live here in Greer, the awesome metropolis of Greer. I'm a solutions engineer over at Tailscale. For those here, anyone here has used Tailscale? Oh, sweet, I love it. So hopefully you guys are fans and are still using it. But before that, I spent about 16 years in the production world. Developer, sysadmin, Linux admin, Windows admin, jack of all trades. And so, but anyways, I like to fish. That is a fish I caught out of a small pond here in Taylor's on 2-pound test line, 15-pound grass carp. So it was a lot of fun. Didn't break my line. But today, since we're going to talk a little bit about remote access, every one of you are probably accessing something remotely, whether it's your home network, if you're using the cloud, AWS, GCP, Azure, anything else, you are doing it remotely. The question is, how are you doing it? Well, there's a little bit of a status quo in remote access today. You know, you've got the YOLO aspect of it. Hey, I'm a dev, I don't care, or I'm just apathetic. I'm gonna throw it out there. I'm gonna SSH over public Wi-Fi, nothing encrypted, use a generic password I've been using for 20 years, and you know, same thing. Or you just use the same public key password you've been using. I was at a conference, All Things Open, a couple years ago, talking to someone. He's like, oh yeah, I use public keys. I've used the same key for the last 5 years. And so I'm like, well, we probably need to change that. Maybe you don't even think about the underlying network. You know, we're using Flywheel's Wi-Fi, and you just assume that everything is secure, that there's no man in the middle, no one's sniffing, no one's trying to do anything bad about that. For those that work for a company or a large company or even small company, you have stuff like legacy VPNs, OpenVPN, Cisco ASA, Fortinet, FortiGate. I'm sure you guys all love those, probably great. Can be buggy, can be slow. I hear a lot of headaches from customers that are using these tools, and there's just a lot of frustrations. AWS VPN is one as well. If you're using a lot of AWS resources, AWS has their own VPN client based on OpenVPN. But a lot of times that user experience is a bust. Why? Because VPN technology has been around for a long time. And it's not the most exciting. It's networking, and it just connects you, and you just kind of use it. It's kind of one of the pains of life. But in today's world, as things have evolved and changed, a lot of times that remote access piece has been a little bit slow to come along, until the WireGuard project came about, a number of years ago. And with the advent of something like WireGuard, and then today, Zero Trust, ZTNA, the buzzword that we all hear, gets you to think a little bit differently how you're managing access to remote resources. So from a Zero Trust aspect, you just approach it from a Zero Trust, like, hey, I don't trust anything, and so how we're going to gain access or grant access is going to be, you don't have it unless it's been explicitly granted. Today's modern world, you don't need a hardware concentrator. Like for those of you that are old school sysadmins, when I used to work at ScanSource years ago, we had like a hardware concentrator. You throw in the data center and that's what you use, and a lot of places still have that. Well, modern remote access, you don't really need things along that line. And of course, you want something that's fast, lightweight, and secure. So you just want it to work, because the last thing developers want to do is spend an hour a day troubleshooting network connectivity, right? You just want to code, hit a git push, watch your build go, and be done with it. So you don't want to deal with something that's legacy, and then you have to open up a ticket, or you have to context switch because something broke. So that's kind of the idea of today's quick landscape of what that looks like. And just really quickly here, before we jump into about a 5-minute demo here, is rethinking what this access might be. I've already mentioned something like WireGuard. The WireGuard project, large open source project, really awesome. Using your operating system of choice, Linux users, which a lot of times some VPN clients don't play well with that. Infrastructure agnostic, doesn't care where your infrastructure is. Could be a Raspberry Pi at home, could be your Apple TV, could be in any of the clouds. And of course, general standard practices for those that are leveraging secrets. Using a vault, like Tomes this morning, he's saying, hey, I normally use a vault. Don't store those on Post-it notes. Use a good vault, whether it's a Bitwarden or 1Password or something like that. Just don't use LastPass. You want to lock down your ingress, and then my little shill here, you want to use a modern tool, something like Tailscale. For those that don't know what Tailscale is, it is a modern remote access solution that's built upon WireGuard. So our CEO built it a number of years ago as a way to say, hey, I need remote access, and this WireGuard project's pretty awesome, so let's take a look at it and see how it works. So I'm going to do a really super fast demo here, just kind of show you what it might look like. And for those that have used it, this is actually like a command line UI. This is not official. It's by Neuralink, one of our customers, and they open source it. So it's a pretty cool web CLI UI if you ever wanted to play around with it. But what does Tailscale do? Well, it allows you to connect to your remote resources, encrypted securely without a whole lot of headache and management. So I've got a server that's already spun up on Vultr, just from simplicity's sake here. And just to show you guys access to it, we're going to gain access to the server without opening up anything external to it. So in this case, when you look at my firewall rules here, I only have one. That's my home IP address and Spectrum and Greer, and I'm denying everything else. Same with IPv6, my Spectrum IP, and then denying everything else. So technically, this server has no public ingress into it. Even though it has a public IP address, you can ping it right now, you can try to get to it, but nothing will respond to it because it is not publicly accessible. But that changes when I'm using a tool like Tailscale, because now, if I'm using something like Tailscale, this is actually connected, and I can access this server as if it were sitting right here next to me. So for that aspect, I can SSH into it. So I'm just gonna, SSH right there into it. And boom, I'm on that box right now. And as root and whatever. And by the way, I'm not using a public key that I put up there. I don't even have a key on this system. And my firewall rules only allow it from my home IP, and my IP here is here at Flywheel. So while I'm on, from an engineering development standpoint, things allowing you to securely access some of your remote infrastructure. And it makes it really easy. So let's say you're an engineer and you're working on a site and your distributed workforce, and you say, hey, Barry, come take a look at this. Oh wait, I got to throw it up on a cloud server, got to get a firewall rule, and then whitelist your IP address so you can go view my service. Well, if Barry was on my tailnet, all you did is use a tool like Tailscale Serve, you can now access this resource without an issue. In fact, if you scan that QR code right now, it'll open up a fully qualified domain name in your phone, in your browser, but it's not going to work. Because this website, even though I have a Let's Encrypt certificate on it, it's fully encrypted, only runs in my tailnet, only runs on my network. So let's say you now have this little service that you're running, you're like, oh, this is pretty cool, but now I want to show it to a contractor or someone that's not part of our internal service org. So maybe I need to just break it apart. So I'm going to use another command. We see this from developers. Those of you that have used, I believe it's ngrok, which is a tool to allow to expose services. Well, Tailscale has a service similar to that called Funnel. So now, if you refresh that in your phone, give it a few seconds, it actually should work. It will actually come up and you should see, hello, Carolina codes. Now, what I've done, I've taken, oh, by the way, this is running off this little Vultr server that has a public IP, but you're not getting to it. It's routing through the tailnet, the Tailscale system. But you get a fully encrypted Let's Encrypt certificate. Now you can expose these services to your end users or dashboards, things along that line that you want to manage access to. And the cool thing about something like Tailscale, if you wanted to leverage it in your own environment, it's free. From that aspect, I definitely want to encourage you, home labbers, we love home labbers that use it. It is open source. We're on GitHub, so you can actually see a lot of our work being done out there on GitHub. But another cool thing is, one last thing here is, let's say I'm traveling and I am wanting to go someplace and I don't trust their sketchy Wi-Fi. Well, what if I wanted a full tunnel VPN? Or what if there's a show, Clemson's playing football, but it's only broadcasting in the Greenville area, but I'm in Washington State and I can't access to it? Well, guess what? I could, if I had a device that was set up, let's say, as an exit node, now I'm at my hotel in Washington State, I can now run it, so now all my traffic's routed through my firewall here in Greer, South Carolina. So now I've got a full tunnel network, fully encrypted, so now I can watch my Clemson Tigers play football on that line. But anyways, so that's it. Tailscale in a nutshell. It is, you know, you can go to, if you're like, okay, where do I even go? Go to our page, click on Get Started. It is free for, you know, home labbers and things along that line, but have a lot of fun with it. If you have any questions, hook me up on Zulip or Greenville Slack. I'm actually headed out to a Boy Scout camp out for a couple miles this evening, so won't be here a little bit, but thank you very much.